أجمعين وبعد. Tonight inshallah ta'ala we continue with the tafsir of Surat Al-Mursalat to conclude it or complete it. You may take a little bit of time off, a week or two, and then we will kind of bring it back as the tafsir of Juz' Amma, again to encourage people who have not been attending this series to attend at least the last Juz'. If they didn't attend the first three, they can attend the last one. Again, my intention when I started this around 4 years ago now was to perform tafsir of all of what we call al-Mufassal, which is from Qaf to An-Nas at the end of the Quran, which is the amount of Quran I think every Muslim should try to memorize. That's kind of what you should try to work on. If you're not someone who finds it easy to memorize Quran or it's not easy to understand it, then this is a very good portion of the Quran for you to know. It summarizes everything. It's the end of the Quran. So the khatima, like the summary, the conclusions of everything that was talked about at the first 26 juz is kind of repeated in smaller doses and more smaller surahs and repeated and explained. And that's why usually we get our children to memorize these surahs, not just because they're short, but also because they contain all of the values and ethics and basic concepts of what Islam is. And Juz' Amma is the summary of the summary. So it really puts everything together into perspective. And it has a very large number of surahs, even though they're quite short. So the last surah of the 29th juz', or the third cluster of surahs within this series from Qaf to An-Nas, which is the cluster of surahs from Al-Mulk to Al-Mursalat, and it talks about the representation of Islam and da'wah and all that comes with that. And this final surah gives the example of what da'wah would be like with the focus on warning. Surat Al-Insan was a form of da'wah, it was an example of da'wah, but with the focus of desire or reward. And Surat Al-Qiyamah was an example of da'wah with the focus of intellect and humanity. And Surat Al-Mursalat's main focus is this verse that is repeated. It serves almost as a transition between paragraph and paragraph, where he continues to repeat subhanahu wa ta'ala the same phrase, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Then I spent a reasonable amount of time last time explaining it, because it's very important. If you don't understand it, or if it's not clear why he's using this term and why he's repeating this phrase, then the surah is not clear. Takdhib is a very specific thing. It's not kufr. Kufr is very generic. It's a very general term. Most of the time, it's just used to describe the differences between two people, apparently. In this life, to make life easy for us, there's Muslim and there's kafir. That's it. It's not, kafir here is not it's not a curse word. Like, I'm not trying to curse them out. It's just a description. Either you are Muslim, either you say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, or you don't. Right? Either this is something you accept, so you're Muslim, or you don't, so you're kafir. I am kafir can compare to a non-Muslim person. Like to a Christian or a Yahudi, I'm kafir to them. Why? Because I don't believe in what they believe in. So it's really not a way to, obviously it's a curse word if I'm using it against a Muslim. You shouldn't ever say that to a Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ tells us if you call a Muslim a kafir, one of you is now going to be that. Once you introduce the word into the conversation, one of you carries it. Either the person that you accused is truly kafir or you are now. So you have to be very careful. It's not a word to be thrown around lightly or used lightly. And honestly, aside from scholars, no one should be using this term. There are certain terms that are scholarly terms, and maybe I should, it's probably a series I should talk about at some point. There are scholarly terms. Terms are only used by ulama, honestly. You should know when people should not use. Like as a common Muslim, this is not a word for you to use. And the word kafir in describing people is not something you should be using. This is really not your term to use. No difference then if you're not specialized in medicine or not specialized in a specific part of medicine. Certain words are not for you to use. Like they're just not your. This is not what you understand, and you can't really. If you walk into the doctor's office and start throwing around big medical terms, the doctor immediately is like, Habibi. We have someone who thinks they understand what they don't understand, and now I have to play along. And so this is the worst encounter, wallahi. The worst encounters of my entire practice is when someone walks in who's Googled or ChatGPT'd something and is coming in and he's memorized a couple of words and they're throwing these words out, and I know that that they don't have a medical degree and they don't have expertise in this at all, but they're just throwing out those words to try and seem what they're not, and it just makes me it's very uncomfortable because now I don't want to correct everything that they say because what they're saying is wrong to their detail, but at the same time I want to be able to explain things appropriately to them. It's a big headache. When you act like you know what you don't know is not healthy. It's not healthy for anyone. There's nothing wrong with not knowing many things. We don't know anything really as human beings. What is our knowledge? وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. It's a very small amount of knowledge. I don't know anything. Well, I know very little within Shara. There's so much to know. I know very little, but what I know I will share. And knowing what you don't know is actually more important than knowing what you know. And this obviously is an ethical issue. Is the ability just to kind of admit that I don't understand this very well. I have a basic understanding. I'm happy with my basic understanding. Add to it what you have, but I'm not going to. It's an important thing, anyways, to keep in mind. So here, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he keeps on using this term. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Woe to those who, on that day, to those who turn their backs knowingly. Takdeeb requires you to know what the truth is. Al-kufr does not. Al-kufr, when someone is kafir, I don't know why they're kafir. They could be kafir because no one has ever presented Islam to them before. They just don't know. They've never met a Muslim in their lives. They have no phones. They're living somewhere in the rural parts of India. They've never ever met a Muslim. All they've heard of are wars that have occurred. They have no idea. And they don't have access to the internet, and they don't really have interest when they do have access to go look into religion. So they don't know. That's a kafir. I don't know why they're a kafir. I don't know what's going to happen in the Yawm al-Qiyamah. I have no understanding of their situation. There are many people who lived before Islam and before, in between the times of prophets. So they lived within a small village where religion never reached at all. Kuffar, without me understanding exactly what led to it and what the takdeeb is different. Takdeeb is when truth or haqq has been presented and the person assessed it and the person saw the haqq and they said no. That's takdeeb. When you refuse the truth. When someone comes and makes an argument to you and you know that that's the right argument, but you don't want to take it. And the reason here doesn't matter. Here, the reason doesn't matter for takdeeb. I don't care why. There are many reasons for why people will refuse the correct argument when they are cornered or when they are discussing something. It could be ego, pride. It could be fear. It could be many things. There's a lot of reasons for what the dislike of the person who is making the argument that is correct. There's a lot of reasons for why we refuse a correct argument when we are carrying the incorrect one. But regardless of why, this is called takdeeb, and this is one of the worst things you can do. A Muslim and takdeeb, they don't come together. They don't mix. They don't mix. If you're a Muslim, you will never perform takdeeb. Not just about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but about anything. Meaning whenever an argument, a correct argument is presented to you, you will accept it. Al-insiya' lil-haqq. The acceptance of haqq, unconditional acceptance of truth and righteousness is one of the hallmarks of being a Muslim. It is the most important part of being a Muslim because that's the ethic of haqq. Meaning you always accept it. And by the way, it's a very liberating thought and feeling that you just follow haqq. You don't have to, you're not agenda driven towards anything, nor are you attached to anything, nor do you need to defend anything. That you just, whatever haqq is. Takdeeb means there's something that you're defending. The truth was presented to you, but you know. It's the truth, it's the haqq. There's something that you can't accept this haqq because it's going against something else that you have to defend. Maybe your ego, maybe your tribe, maybe. We all know the story. When at some point before he died, before Badr, Abu Jahl, Qariban, he sat there and he leveled with Safwan ibn Umayyah, who is Safwan ibn Umayyah ibn Khalaf. So Safwan is like a younger generation. He's not the generation of Abu Jahl. He's younger, but he was mentored by him. And at some point he leveled with him. And he told him, إِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ لَصَادِقٌ. I know that he tells the truth. Safwan is, what are we doing then? Why have we been, what are you talking about? We kicked him, why, what are you saying? فقال ولكننا كنا وبني هاشم كفرسي رهان يقولون منا كذا ونقول منا كذا حتى قالوا منا نبي فأنى لنا بهذه. We were just like two racetrack horses. And we were always competing, my tribe and his, Banu Makhzum and Banu Hashim. And we're always, they say we have this person, we say we have this person. They say we have this. They just talk. Arab love to take pride in their lineage and their tribes. And then they said, well, we have a Nabi. Like, didn't think of that one. I can't follow him. It's just, it goes against everything that I built my life on. I know he's truthful. That's takdeeb. That's takdeeb. That's not, I looked at it and it doesn't make sense to me. That's very different. Now some people will say that, but that's not what they're doing. But I'm saying, if you looked at things and it doesn't make sense to you, you really did. Asa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yaghfir. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive that person because they tried their best and this is what they could come up with. And this happens a lot. Granted, if you present it properly, then most reasonable people will accept it. But I'm just saying, takzeeb is when it's clear and you say no. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. For these people, waylun. There is no joking around. So that's why this verse, specifically, you find it not just in Surat Al-Mursalat, you find it elsewhere in the Quran. It's repeated in the Quran in many different places. Takdeeb and kufr are not equal. They're different. The kufr, there's a lot of vagueness and ambiguity surrounding it. Takdeeb is where punishment lies, because takdeeb is an ethical problem. It's not just a religious problem, it's an ethical problem. Because it's the refusal of haqq, and if you refuse haqq, then you've breached the main ethic. The number one ethic on the list has been breached, and it doesn't matter what you do after that. We never accept takdeeb amongst any of us. We always go back to haqq. Go and read Surat. I did this tafseer years ago. I think we did it in Ramadan as well, I believe so. Maybe not. Surat gives you the examples of people who made mistakes and they go back. When it's presented to them, they go back. Dawood alayhi salam, he gave judgment before listening to the other person. Once it was clear to him, استغفر ربه, right? وخر راكعا وأناب. Immediately he repented. Sulaiman alayhi salam, same thing. ردوها علي فطفق مسحا بالسوق والأعناق قال ربي اغفر لي. He got busy by looking at the beauty of the horses and أخر العصر. He didn't pray on time appropriately, so he استغفر. Ayyub alayhi salam said something he shouldn't have said. He got accepted his wife and he took an oath he shouldn't have said. وَخُذْ بِيَدِكَ ضِغْثًا فَاضْرِبْ بِهِ وَلَا تَحْنَثْ. It was given a way out. Iblis, alayhi la'natullah, didn't. He made a mistake and he was given a way out. He didn't take it. Iblis kept on going. He dug his heels in. Right? You have to choose. You have to choose what you're going to do. When you're caught in a mistake, you have to choose. Are you going to go back to haqq, or are you going to dig your heels in? Are you going to go all in and see if it works? Sometimes it does. Sometimes you get away with it. It's life. It happens all the time. The court system is filled with people who dig their heels in, they get away with it. It's just Yawm al-Qiyamah you don't. And that ethical breach will haunt you. And it'll never leave you. And you're stuck with it until you admit it, until you go back and you fix what you've done. That's why وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. That's their problem. That's why wail. I'm just explaining to you why wail for them. Why others not and them wail. Why that name specifically? Because that is an ethical breach. It's a refusal of haqq. And that's why it's repeated in this surah time and time again. It's almost like a hammer. He talks, then he hammers it again. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Then he talks a little bit more, then he hammers it again. And it keeps on being hammered down until you feel, okay, khalas, I understand. I'll do anything, but I won't do that. And if you don't do that, then you're safe. If you are someone who's always seeking haqq, you're safe in life. You're safe. You'll be fine. Because that pursuit will always guide you, will lead you to the right thing. Because if in your mind, I'm looking, what is the right thing to do here? I'm not trying to defend anything. I have nothing to lose here. I have nothing to gain. I just want to see what is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do, khalas. I do that. Where does haqq lie? I will stay with haqq. That will save you and protect you and prevent harm for you for the rest of your life. Just that, just doing that all the time, just always asking. Even when you feel like your personal interest comes into the game, even when your ego comes in and your honor and your reputation and your family, they start to seep in a little bit, and you start to feel like I need to defend this position or defend this word because it's something about me. If you learn to put that away and just follow haqq, you'll be always safe. Like if I don't, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. That's what. Like if I don't, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ. طيب. We'll continue the reading from ayah number 16. And here subhanahu wa ta'ala will present the three basic arguments for why you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The three basic arguments, at the end of each of them repeating the same phrase. So we'll start inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نهلك الأولين ثم نتبعهم الآخرين. So we have to pay attention. نتبعهم. نُتْبِعُهُمُ. It's 3 dhammat in a row. No one likes that. Like the tongue, the mouth doesn't like it. It's not comfortable for it. ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ. You have to go all in a row. And then الآخرين, not الآخرين, الآخرين. And I'll explain in a moment. كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Because the worst takdhib is the takdhib in these basics of the story of these 3 sources that we use to find Allah and to search for the power behind the universe and search for the truth, are these basic arguments. The first one, أَلَمْ نُهْلِكِ الْأَوَّلِينَ. Did we not destroy or punish or remove al-awwalin, the early nations? ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ الْآخِرِينَ. And then we followed that removal with all of the nations that came later. Al-akhir is at the end. Al-awwal at the beginning, al-akhir that comes later. And then we did the same thing for all the later nations that followed them. كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. And that is how we have been treating the criminals, or those who break the laws of Allah time and time again. The first source that the surah talks about is history. You have to study human history a little bit. You have to look at what happened before. For you to not do that is absolutely, it makes no sense. For you to come into the world and not be interested in what has everyone been doing before I arrived. For you to have no interest in that is actually quite surprising. It makes me question the psyche of those who do that. Like you appeared into this world. You wake up to life like in your early teen years. Like it's kind of where you wake up and you suddenly have a brain and you start thinking a little bit. And you go for a few years just trying to figure out the basics of your feelings or your emotions. But after a little bit of time of doing that, there has to be some interest in, well, what happened like before I was here? Obviously a lot has happened. What was going on? And then you go and look into that and you find there's a pattern. There are a few patterns that regardless of what you're looking at, like where you live in this world, there are a few patterns that repeat themselves. All those who break the moral and ethical laws fall. They meet their demise in a horrible way eventually. All of them do. All of the great empires of the land, all of the great kings and dictators, and those who broke the moral and ethical laws that we all know to be true, meaning all of the khair in this world, those who broke these laws, they fell. Not only did they find their demise because of that, they disappeared. And their athar did too. Like they almost don't, as if they don't exist anymore. And it's hard to find out anything about them because they're gone. And it happens from the beginning of time. It keeps on happening time and time again. And then awwaleen, that's what happened to them. ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمْ. And then we had the people who came later, the same thing happened. Meaning, if you just go back to a few years before you see the person those who walked around as if they owned the place. With a feather in their shirts and a crown on their heads, walking around, looking down and despising everyone, treating them like garbage, and then suddenly they're gone. Suddenly they're gone. It's like they never were. The speed at which they are erased from the face of the earth is absolutely astonishing. When you think about it, if you lived it, right? So that's why he talks about these 2 things. There are examples that you didn't live, but you can go read about. And then the examples that you lived. I lived it. I remember what it was like. I don't even understand if I go back to Syria how I'm going to actually process it. Like I don't know how I'm going to process this because they own the place. I lived in a piece of land that was owned by others. I had no rights and I didn't own anything in it, and I had no opinion and I was not able to state anything. And I never thought that the people who ran it would ever leave. I thought this was going to be forever. And then they're gone. They're so gone. Like they are so gone. Wallahi, it's like they never were. It's pathetic. It's pathetic how quickly they were gone. How quickly they fell and how little of their memory is left is actually a lesson that I will continue to carry with me to my grave and teach my kids that please don't be taken by anything. I was dumb. I was taken by their power. I wasn't impressed by it. I was just taken by it. That this is a mulk that I don't think could ever go. I don't think this mulk will ever fall. It was my true feeling, and that this is impossible. How are you going to remove this? This is so. It was gone. أَلَمْ نُهْلِكِ الْأَوَّلِينَ ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ الْآخِرِينَ كَذَلِكَ. It's always like that. نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. It's what we do to the criminals time and time again. Time and time again. Look at the history. It's only those who uphold their ethical values and their morals and khayr, and those who seek truth and seek khayr, that stay, and their athar stays later. Meaning, even if they disappear, the results of their work and the legacy that they brought will continue after them. And that's just a basic lesson from history. Looking at what happened to the people with Nuh alayhi salam and Hud and Salih and Shu'aib, seeing all these empires fall time and time again, repeatedly throughout history. It directs your attention somewhere as a human being. There must be something behind this. Not every demise has to be through a sa'iqah, or no. Some demises will happen and you don't even know how they fell. They just fell, but they fell all the same, regardless of what the reason was. They still don't exist anymore, and how quickly it happens, repeatedly. When you observe that, it becomes clear to you that true strength does not exist within the ranks of our kind. True strength is not something that we possess. It is not ours, because we don't have the ability to sustain it. And even if we reach it for a short period of time, it is very quickly that we lose it. And if we break those moral and ethical laws, it's just a matter of time before the demise becomes extremely, extremely painful and very bloody. One of the simple examples that happened after these verses is the fall of both the Roman and the Persian empires at the hands of the people who read these verses. At the hands of the people who read these verses. It's almost like, it was like a fever dream. I'm sure it was for them. Because it's impossible. The Persian Empire was something off the charts. This is the strength of the Sassaniyin, as they were called. Something that was not understandable back then, in terms of the numbers that they had, and the wealth that they possessed, and the resources they had their hands on. Till this day, it's an extremely rich part of the world in every way. And this empire had existed for so long. What are you talking about, the Muslim Arabs? Well, the Arabs are a dot, they're a freckle on the face of that peninsula. And yet within 10 years tops, and I'm not even, that's an exaggeration, honestly. That's an exaggeration of, it wasn't even a decade. It was flattened. It was absolutely flattened. They ran through it as if nothing. And the same thing for the Romans. The speed at which the Romans fell was small. And then subhanAllah, when the Muslim became a little bit careless and allowed for some corruption to enter, the Mongols did the same to them. The Mongols did the same to them. That the speed through which the Mongols actually ran through the Muslim Khilafah was absolutely, they thought it was Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you read the Tarikh al-Kabir, Ibn Athir al-Jazari, he says very clearly, خلاص الساعة قامت الساعة. This is the end of it. This is the end of Islam and Muslimin. We're done. Scholars say, we're done, finished. Ibn Kathir, same thing. This is not going to, there's no coming back from this. Because you're talking about all of the major capitals that existed in Khurasan and Bukhara and Samarkand, and they all just fell like dominoes. And then Baghdad was absolutely demolished. And then subhanAllah, it came to Egypt, and the pushback came. And subhanAllah, the Mongols accepted Islam later. If you go to that part of the world, the people who came in are now Muslim. That's the difference, right? That's the difference between the two. So when you study history a little bit, you learn things. You learn patterns about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created things, and what stays and what doesn't, and what vanishes into nothingness, and what actually continues after it's gone. أَلَمْ نُهْلِكِ الْأَوَّلِينَ ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ الْآخِرِينَ كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. The first source. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Woe on that day to those who refuse this. Like, who see the truth, who read all of it, who learn something, who is clear to them, the pattern is there, and say, no, it's not there. No, that's all. You're just, like, you can't argue those who don't want to admit that which is very apparent. This is just I'm talking about just the broad strokes. I'm not talking about the details of how things fell and got. No, just the broad strokes of how human collective governance comes, rises and then falls, and the pattern that which this is observed through. So that's the first source of Iman. We'll read the second one, inshallah. أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُّم مِّن مَّاءٍ مَّهِينٍ. For our qira'ah, Hafs and Asim, there are two ways to recite this word. So either you absolutely remove the qaf and you just recite the kaf, أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُّم, like that, which is actually the more prominent position amongst Qurra. I don't necessarily like it. I usually use the second one. I think it's confusing for those who aren't Arab. I think it confuses people who don't know the details of it and they don't know what's happening. They think there's a mistake. The other way is where you start out with a qaf and you end with a kaf. Without a qalqala, or alam nakhluqkum. Alam nakhluqkum. And that's the second way of doing it, right? And both are correct. And I'm telling you that the more prominent, arjah, meaning the one that's more, is alam nakhluqkum, where you completely remove the qaf, and it's called idgham al-mutaqaribain. There's only a few examples of it in the Quran, but this is probably one of the most famous of them all. So whatever you choose to do is fine. I find that if you're not an Arabic language specialist, or you're or an acrobatic within your throat, then maybe just use a kaf. Alam nakhluqkum, and you're totally safe, and that's actually the more prominent position. I use the other one because I find it sounds better for someone who's reading, who's following along, especially if you have Muslims who are kind of new to the Quran. They won't get it. Why is the qaf not being? Then you have 100 questions and it's not. So I just make sure that they can hear the qaf at the beginning of the word. Nakhluqkum or alam nakhluqkum, and both are correct. Right. فَجَعَلْنَاهُ فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ إِلَى قَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ فَقَدَرْنَا فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. And since this ayah is repeated so many times, be careful with the idgham al-kamil. So يَوْمَئِذٍ. Now listen, يَوْمَئِذٍ. There's no noon. There's no noon. You go from the dhal to the lam with a shadda on it. There's no essence or residual of the noon. يَوْمَئِذٍ. Dhil. See, if there's noon, it'll come through here. Dhil. That's not how it's supposed to say. Dhil. There's nothing. يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. It's as if there's no tanween at all, right? But the one before, وَيْلٌ, is going to come through here. وَيْلٌ is going to come through my nose because it has a ghunna. So وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Since we're repeating the same ayah many times, just might as well kind of learn how to do it properly. All right. We'll read the one after it and then I'll explain them together. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا أحياء وأمواتا وجعلنا فيها رواسي شامخات وأسقيناكم ماء فراتا ويل يومئذ للمكذبين. So the first one was history. The second one is life. Life, the process of life. أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُّمْ. Did we not create you? مِنْ مَاءٍ مَهِينٍ. From so al-maheen is something that's not distinguished, not honorable. So from a fluid, min ma, from a fluid, that's not an honorable fluid. It's not gushing out from a spring somewhere. It's not falling from the sky. It's coming from a part of the body that's not distinguished either. So alam nakhluqkum wasn't your creation. Did we not create you and bring you forth from an unhonorable or undistinguished fluid? فَجَعَلْنَاهُ. And then we took that very small amount of undistinguished fluid. And put it فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. In a safe, al-makin is something that is strong, and that is tamakkan is when you establish yourself well. Tamakkun is establishment, and is when you're able to find some degree of strength, right? So fi qararin makin, al-qarar is a destiny or is a placement. Makin that is powerful or that is protected. Fi qararin makin, so a protected vessel. Which is the truth of what the womb is. Probably the most fascinating muscle that exists in the world. In any, by far, there's kids here, so I'm not going to, but the most impressive part of the human anatomy is by far the womb and everything that's attached to it. The ability how this muscle is actually created, its ability to contract the way it does and expand the way it does and then go is absolutely, there's nothing that's similar to it. And without the womb being that powerful and that established and that well protected, it's impossible for life to ever have existed. فَجَعَلْنَاهُ فِي this indistinguished dishonorable fluid or simple fluid or is going to be put in a qarar makin, in a strong established vessel. إِلَى قَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ, to an appointed time. Qadar is an amount of time. Qadr is status. Qadr, that's status or power. Al-qadr is an amount of time or an estimated time. إلى قدر معلوم, until an estimated time. فقدرنا, and indeed we estimated that time. فنعم القادرون, and that qadr, that destiny that we made was فنعم القادرون, we were the best ones to do that. Meaning we made sure that this process was going to happen majestically, exactly how it needed to happen. And he emphasizes subhanahu wa ta'ala that piece. Why? Because it's one of the most fascinating aspects of existence today, is actually just seeing how life, why is it that when the sperm finds its way into the ova and the two strands of DNA that are just kind of alone, they come and they make you, and then they start to go through mitosis, and now you had one cell and I have two cells, and then 4, and 8, and 16, and it keeps on. And then after a while, these cells, a group of them decide to become the placenta that later on is thrown away, and another group of them become the human being. No clue. Those cells have been looked at time and time again. And why is it that these cells are going to become you, and these cells are going to become just the cord that's going to attach you to your mother and allow you to, no one knows. And as these cells continue to divide, they slowly start to turn into different organs. Right? They start to turn into the eyes and the ears and the spinal cord and the liver, and slowly they start to take their places and engrave into certain directions, and they're just turning into things. It's absolutely insane. Like if you watch it, you're just wondering how is this? Why? What coding exists in those two strands of DNA? Like what code made this? You're impressed by ChatGPT. Go look at this code. It's just two strands of DNA. They touch each other, and then it turns into you. It just turns into what we are. You have no control over this at all. We just watch it, and it just La ilaha illallah. It just keeps on moving and turning and growing and developing, and you just, now I can see an eye. That looks like an ear. That looks like a nose. No clue. No clue why they're choosing to do this and why it's turning into cartilage and bone, and they're all the same thing. It's the same strand, the same cells. They just know what to do. Now, I'm not saying that science won't tell us why. No, science will, as science gets better, we'll understand how it's happening more and more. But that doesn't take away from the fact that someone coded it to do that. Like, just because you understand how that coding is translating into you, doesn't mean that no one coded it. Sometimes this is like a major problem. Just because you figured out the recipe doesn't mean that no one made it. Doesn't mean that the oven made it. Just because you took the food and figured out what the recipe is, that the oven made this. Someone made it. Yeah, I understand you figured it out. Barakallah. Amazing. It doesn't mean that no one cooked it. Like someone actually put it all together. We seem to, I don't know where it comes from. It's a very weird phenomenon that I observe. That once we understand how, we decide to ignore that someone did it. And if someone puts a beautiful puzzle together and you figure out how they did it, that doesn't mean that they didn't do it. It just means that you figured it out. But the human arrogance is of such a wicked nature that once you figure out how, you feel like now you're better than the one who did it. Like, I don't need you anymore because I figured out how to do it. What? You haven't figured out anything. You can't create it. Go create it. You can just manipulate something that already has a code. You can play around with it. You can pull out fluids. You can do it. But you can't make that. We can't make anything. But we can take something that already works and play around with it and figure out things, learn parameters and attributes and descriptions and mechanisms of action and learn things about it and learn how to maybe improve it or remove disease or remove pain, but we don't understand, we barely understand the basics. Wallah, barely the basics. So he's telling you here, Alam nakhluqkum min ma'in mahin. Look at you, go stand in front of the mirror, look at what you have as a person, what you're able to do, what you're able to create and build, the depth of your thoughts, the genuineness of your emotions, your ability to dream and hope and think and love. It was undistinguished, it was fluid, mahin, put in a small vessel. فَقَدَرْنَا, and then just it's like being cooked in put the, if they're 9 months, just 10 months, walk away, come back, it'll ding, open up, it's a little human being. Give them 10 years, they're now the khasimun mubin, they're going to start arguing back to you after 10 years. 20 years, they're moving out and starting their own thing and don't even have time for you. Nothing, eh? Nothing, yeah. The human beings decide that no, that's not worth. فَقَدَرْنَا فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ. And we estimated the time for it all and how it would work. فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ. And no one, ni'm is a way of ni'ma الرَّجُلُ, or ni'ma is a way to commend someone, say something nice about them. فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ. And we were the best to estimate it all. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Woe on that day for those who turn their backs on all of this and refuse it. Number 3, so history and life. Number 3, the world. The world. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا. Do we not make this earth kifata? The kifat is takafut is when things are brought together. Sometimes the word kufta is because things are kind of brought. It's just the same. So kifata is when things are brought together, yeah? And then it's produced. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا. Do not make it the landfill or the establishment of ahya'an wa amwata that will produce both things that are lifeless and lifeful. Like you'll find from this earth, from the material of the universe, from the material of this land, ahya'an, things that will live, wa amwata, and things that won't live, rocks and mountains and water and stuff that don't. But you'll find both from the molecules and the elements of this ard. Everything is going to be created. وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ شَامِخَاتٍ. And on it you will find high mountains, high top mountains. وَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمْ. And we made sure that upon it, مَاءً فُرَاتًا, fresh water will run for you to drink from. The third source for your iman is just looking around. It's just studying the existence, the earth that you live on, and everything that it carries within it. Now, if you go beyond that and start looking into the cosmos, that's barakah. But let's say you don't have the ability to do that. People back then, they didn't really have the ability to study the cosmos. They stared at the sky for a very long time and memorized everything in it, but they didn't know what was there. They didn't need that for iman. Just look around and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put for you on this beautiful earth. How everything is set up so that you can find your way. You can navigate and guide yourself. You have all the tools that you need. If you're hungry or you're thirsty or you're scared or you're cold or you're hot, you find things. He has it all there for you. وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ شَامِخَاتٍ وَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمْ مَاءً فُرَاتًا وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. You start hearing the intensity of this ayah is growing. If the ayah, the first وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, okay. But then the second one, after he talks to you, see what happened to the people before you. The intensity goes up. You don't see how I created you. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ. You don't see what I put around you. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ. Every time the intensity goes up a bit. Reminding, why is this all being denied? Why are you refusing to look at all this? Why are you refusing to deduce anything from it? Why does it mean nothing to you? Why is the haqq that exists within it being something that you're overseeing and overlooking and just overstepping every time? Why? وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. It's the mukaththibeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning. Look at all these things and tell me what these tell you. Explain, what do these tell you? What do you learn from all of this? Nothing. There's no haqq in any of them to you at all. Woe to you on that day if you decide that this is not going to be something you're going to think about. Those are the three main sources of where people bring their iman. Now, iman should be built on these three. I've talked about this before many times, and I have to use it because this surah established it in an extremely beautiful manner. I think it's worth sharing with you. Iman, your faith or your acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your understanding of La ilaha illallah should not be built on variables. If you build your Iman on a variable, then your Iman is a variable. Anything that's built on a variable is going to be a variable in its own sense. So if you build your Iman on a dua that was once accepted for you, or a rizq that was once given to you, or success that you are enjoying at some point in your life, then those are all variables. And just like you accept your Iman was strong when you had them, your Iman will become weak when you lose them. And this is the main problem that most people run into, is that they have their Iman, but then things don't go the way they want, and they start to lose their Iman, when really their Iman was supposed to be there for them once things went sour. That was the whole point of it. The whole point of your Iman is that when you fall, it picks you up. When you fail, it helps you stand up again. It gets you through the difficult times. It's not there only for the easy times. That makes no sense. But those who build their Imans on variables are going to have a variable Iman. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran never ever asks you to build your Iman on something that's a variable. Which is why the final message didn't have a variable. It didn't have an actual miracle. The Prophet ﷺ had a lot of dala'il nubuwah, a lot of evidence of his prophecies, a lot of things that happened that the Sahaba observed and knew that this is something different. But he never used them as ways to challenge Quraysh or challenge the people. Say, come and see what I can do. Musa alayhi salam, that's what he did. He stood there. Hey, come see what I got. Gather down. Ta-da. Do that again. Pick it up again. Yalla, bring everyone again. We'll do it again. As many times as you want. I'll throw it. I'll pull my hand out. I'll bring it to light. Whatever you want. Isa alayhi salam, same thing. Same thing with Salih. It was there. But because these are variables, at the end of time, when the final message of the Prophet alayhi salam was going to be presented, that didn't exist. He left us with a constant. He left us with something that is constant. He left us with thought. He left us with principle, with a theology, with a way of seeing the world, so that you can build your Iman on something that is rock solid. Because if your Iman is built on your observation of life and how it came to be, if your Iman is built on your observation of the universe and the cosmos and the earth and everything that exists in it, if your Iman is built on your understanding of the patterns of history, all that came before you. You see, every population on earth, there's a Rasul that came to them. If this was all made up, the odds of a faith being generated somewhere in South America and somewhere in mid-Asia, to have the same basic guidelines, to have the same basic story they had no way to communicate these things back then. There had to be some way to coordinate. That you would find that these faiths that existed 5,000 years ago or so, or more or less, had the same basic lines of stories of a man and a woman and a snake and an apple and all the same stuff, like just different names and different places, and the details differ. The basics are there. The bullet points are pretty much being replicated all across the world historically. It's everywhere. People think, oh, that's evidence that it's all made up. No, that's evidence that this is the truth, because it's being repeated everywhere. Because I can't imagine that someone living in North Russia can communicate with someone in South America 7,000 years ago. How did they do this? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. And yet you find the same bullet points. How is that possible? Like there are civilizations that didn't figure out bathrooms. There are civilizations that didn't figure out schools and didn't figure out. But every civilization has a temple. Every civilization has a temple. That's how you define them, by the way. One of the ways of understanding that there was once an empire is that they have temples, because they always have temples. Because there always has to be something, some faith of some sort that exists. Then you look at them, it's the same, that's history. You look at life. Life isn't, you're living an intelligent life right now. Right now, you're an intelligent human being. You're able to think. You can understand, you can process information. You can figure things out. You can question everything around you. You have a degree of metacognition that allows you to bend the environment to make it suit you instead of you just adapting to it. Instead of us just adapting like the polar bears, like the bears do, and the other, we actually bend our surroundings for it to suit us. That came from the coding that exists within two strands of a double helix DNA. Just the coding that exists within it that will make all of these amino acids that will come together and create this kingdom called a cell. And then all these cells will attach to one another and turn into you. If you see nothing in that, then I pity. Sorry, forgive me. I pity you if you see nothing in that at all. Worthy of awe. Like, subhanAllah, whoever made this. Really, the way this is done is that who made this? Someone made this. That's all I need you to do. Someone made this. It's senseless to say no one made this. It's a silly answer. Someone made this. Search and you'll find. Search and you'll find. But whoever made it has to have the basics of what it's able to create. Whoever put that together should at least have the basics of what it produces. You can think, and you're intelligent, and you can learn, right? You have knowledge, and you can see, and you can hear, and you have willpower, and you have abilities. Then whoever made this has to have at least that, if not more. Or else how does something with nothing create something with... And there's no point of even speaking anymore if we're gonna make these empty arguments, nonsense. Look at the earth itself, and look at the moon and the skies and the mountain. Everything is set up so that you can be here, so that you can walk around, so you can actually function. Any changes would have... We know that now. Why? Because we know that, just wait a little bit longer until we just keep on eating that meat and burning that coal until the ice caps, they all completely melt and the methane pockets that exist up there open up, and then the temperature goes up by 1 degree, and then we all die. And then we can't live anymore because we ruined the planet that we were on, and it was perfectly set up for you with a system that keeps things going. And honestly, within that is evidence, is clear that whoever set this up so that you could be here. It took a long time, but it still brought you. That day, woe to those who turned their backs on all of it, refused all of it. The remainder of the verses in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will begin to describe to us what happens to the mukaththibin, what they're going to witness, what they're going to go through. So we're going to start with ayah number 29, probably make it to the middle of the surah, and then we'll conclude the surah inshallah next week. انطلقوا إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون. انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي 3 شعب. So we have to watch out for the lathawiyat here. إلى ظل, so that's a lathawi. It's a letter that requires you to protrude your tongue through your teeth. إلى ظل ذي 3. Right? So all of them have to come through the teeth. This is whenever you have a student who's learning the lathawiyat, you can bring them and just have them recite this verse. And they'll say, انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي 3 كفين 3. He'll get ظل ذي 3 and he'll be fine with his lathawiyat for the rest of his life. So you just get those letters. So you just protrude the tongue outside, through the teeth to get all 3 appropriately. إلى ظل ذي 3. Right? So it's a very good ayah for that practice. Now, لا ظليل ولا يغني من اللهب. إنها ترمي بشرر كالقصر. كأنه جمالة صفر. So for our qira'ah, it's jimalatun. Other qira'at have different pronunciations of this word, but it's jimalatun sufra. If you stop, it's jimalat. If you were to stop there, because you can see the ta is mabsuta in our qira'ah, so you would stop with the ta. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. So it will be called upon them on that day. Which day? يَوْمَئِذٍ, the day that the verse has been repeatedly warning the mukaththibin of. Those who did not accept or refused to accept the truths about what happened historically. Those who refused to accept the truths that they saw that existed within life itself. And those who refused to look at the truths that exist within the world around them. All of these presentations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided for them so that they could see what is the truth and what is not, so that they may conclude what is healthy for them. They refused all of this. كذبوا. They said no to all of it. On that day, انطلقوا, they will be called upon. انطلقوا, go ahead. الانطلاق is when you leave you leave towards your destination. الانطلاق is where you start. You begin your journey. Yawm al-Qiyamah is a journey. It's a long journey. So it's a long journey. A lot happens that day. It's not a short, even for those who find it quick, even for the mu'mineen who find it as a quick endeavor, there's still a lot of moments, a lot of events that will occur as you go through what's happening. A lot to learn, a lot to witness, a lot to absorb and take in. It's a transition that will prepare you for whatever is coming next. Whatever it is, whatever, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those Ahl Jannah, inshallah. But on that day, for you to make it to your final destination, all of these stations, you have to go through these stations. You have to witness certain things. You have to be there to see all of it. And on that day, as the beginning of their journey, it will be called upon them, انطلقوا, go ahead, move forward. إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون, towards that which you spent all of your time denying. تكذبون, the same word. To that which you continue throughout your life to deny and say, nope, it's not there. It's all أساطير الأولين. It's just myths, it's just made up stuff, it's just there to this and to control you and to lie to you. Whatever it is, whatever arguments they used. انطلقوا, go ahead. Go forward to that which you spent all of your life denying, which was clear to you that was not the case. I mean, you knew, you had evidence that this was going to happen and that you were going to actually come to this moment. Now you have to go and face it. انطلقوا, go ahead, go forward. إلى ظل, towards a shade. ذي ثلاث شعب, that has 3 branches within it. Scholars have often, when they try to explain what this meant, there's a lot of difference of opinion on what it means. In the description, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, of Jahannam, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left us with, he said a number of things. He said عليه الصلاة والسلام في حديث حسنه الدارقطني وغيره وضعفه بعضهم. A hadith that is, has some degree of authenticity. Some scholars don't see it to be fully authentic, but it's narrated. فقال إن الله سبحانه وتعالى أوقد على النار 1000 عام حتى احمرت ثم 1000 عام حتى بيضت ثم 1000 عام حتى اسودت. That Jahannam, والعياذ بالله, it was kindled, the fire of it was kindled for 1,000 years until it turned red, and then for another 1,000 years until it turned white, and then for another 1,000 years until it turned dark, so it turned pitch black. So when he talks about إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب, go ahead, go forward towards a dhil, towards a shade that has 3 arms, ذي ثلاث شعب. He's referring to it, والله تعالى أعلم, he's referring to the shade that is generated, والعياذ بالله, by the fire of Jahannam. That is so dense, the fire itself is so dense, it has its own shade. Understanding the description? Everything that is dense enough will have a shade. And the fire, whenever fires come up, they come up with maybe 2 or 3 branches in different directions. So on that day, the only shade that these people will find is the shade of the thick fire, of the thick dark fire that exists in Jahannam. That's the only shade that they'll find, which is la dhalil, and it's neither a shade that grants any coolness. The word dhil comes from, istidlal is when you cool off. Arab needed this, obviously. Living in the desert, this was a very important part of your life, is to find a dhil, find somewhere where you can sit in the shade just for a few moments to cool off. So this shade, the thalathi shu'ab, that has 3 branches. Some say that the 3 branches, is one of them is the fire itself, the other is the smoke of the fire, and the third is the heat of the fire. Like these 3 levels, the 3 levels are the 3 branches that the ayah speaks of. We don't know for sure. And honestly, I hope we never do. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will describe Jahannam in a way, and it'll be very difficult to understand what He's saying. And the scholars often in their books will say, فَلَا نَعْلَمُ مُرَادَهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى مِنْ قَوْلِهِ وَنَسْأَلُهُ تَعَالَى أَلَّا نَعْلَمُ مُرَادَهُ مِنْ قَوْلِهِ. Now, we don't know what he meant by this, and we hope that we never ever know what he meant by this, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's probably one of the reasons there. That you don't need to know. It's just something that you don't need to witness. لا ظليل, it does not grant any form of coolness. ولا يغني من اللهب, and it does not protect you in any way from the flames that are coming your way. Lahab is the flame. It's useless. It's a dhil, because on that day, the heat is so overwhelming from the sun being so close, that they'll be told, انطلقوا, go forward to that which you spent all of your lives denying. You didn't respect it, you didn't accept it, you refused it even though it made sense to you, even though you knew it was the truth. Go towards it now. And go specifically towards the dhil. Go towards the shade. Go to the shade. The 3-branch shade. Go to that shade. You will find neither coolness in that shade, nor will it protect you from the flame. إِنَّهَا تَرْمِي Jahannam, indeed. It throws out. Sharar. Sharar is a spark. If you ever seen, back in the day, people would smoke all the time, and they would fight over their lighters. And if it was a bad lighter, you would do that. Inshallah, the kids never learned what to. They would make this movement, and a spark would be flying out of this. They're trying to get so that little spark. You can do it in many different ways, but that's how I remember the spark. It's a spark. You just put 2 metals close together, and you just have some friction. It'll get a spark. The 2 right types of rocks, and you can get a spark. So innaha, indeed, Jahannam, tarmi, it throws out a spark. Bishararin kal qasr. It's as big as a palace. It's bigger than a palace. It's bigger than a castle. The spark of Jahannam, waliyadu billah, it feels like it's big enough for people to live in. Waliyadu billah. كأنه جمالة صفر. It looks like a caravan of yellow camels. It's long to the point where you see it from afar. It looks like this. It looks like camels that are bright yellow. It's like a caravan. كأنه جمالة صفر. A group of camels, all yellow in color. Just the spark of Jahannam. That's all he talks about here, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He talks about 2 things about Jahannam in these verses. He talks about the shade. He talks about the spark. Those are the 2 things he brings up about Jahannam, waliyadu billah. The shade, right, and the spark. Neither terms should be of any concern to you, right? Why would you be scared of a shade or a spark? Shade is good. Spark is a spark. He tells you, you'll see. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ ظِلٍّ ذِي ثَلَاثِ شُعَبٍ لَا ظَلِيلٍ وَلَا يُغْنِي مِنَ اللَّهَبِ. The shade, horrible. The spark is as big as a castle. It's a caravan of camels. That's how huge it is. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Woe on that day to those who turn their backs on all of this. I want you to read this surah for the entirety of this week. I want you to sense the increase of intensity of this phrase as you go along. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you the story, as He adds pieces of information for you. Like for the beginning of the surah, like Al-Mursalat عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. He talks about the fact that everything in this world will leave an impact of some sort. We'll do something. This is the reality of life. You will choose which way you're going to go. Either you'll do good or you'll do bad. You will disperse a legacy of khair or badness, and everything does that. The wind does that, the malaika do that, you do that, everything does that. That's the reality. And because that's the reality of life, know that Yawm al-Qiyamah, which is what you're being promised of, you're being promised Yawm al-Qiyamah, lawaqi, it's also going to be a reality. فإذا النجوم طمست وإذا السماء فرجت وإذا الجبال نسفت وإذا الرسل أقتت لأي يوم أجلت ليوم الفاصل. On the day when the stars are obliterated and the sky is torn and the mountains are destroyed and the prophets are brought to their appointed to their appointed time, to their appointment. Delayed to which day is delayed to the day of fasl, of distinction, of وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الْفَصْلِ. What do you know about this day? All you need to know is وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. On that day, woe to those who did takzeeb. Those who refused the truth. Those who refused the truth. That's the word here. That's really the main purpose of the surah. It's just drilling in that point. Whatever you do in life, you don't do that. This is my advice to you, especially if you're young, because you're not tied up with things yet. Like you don't have, your hat's not in the arena yet. You don't have any investments. You haven't invested in anything yet, right? You can afford just to follow what is right. There's nothing else and if you learn just to do that in your life, you're going to be fine. It's when you start getting invested in things. It's when there's a cause that you've invested your life in, or a group that you belong to, or a country, or a family, or a project, or anything that you invested yourself in. Now you're stuck to it. You have to defend it. You have to make it look better than it is. You have to lie about it. You stop being a pursuer of haqq, and you become someone who needs to bend reality to fix this, to make it look different. And the moment you turn your back on haqq once, it becomes easier to do. And you'll turn your back on it again and again. Which is why we teach your kids not to lie. Because lying is just bending of the truth. It's breaking the truth. It's accepting that you're not accepting the truth. Did you do it? No. You broke the truth. The truth is that you did. Why are you accepting it? You always accept the truth. You did it, khalas. What's going to happen? Cut your head off, khalas, whatever. Whatever happens. You stick to the truth. Kids learn very early on that the truth is a headache. Find other ways around it. That's why al-kadhib is lying, is because what it does is it denies the truth. You start with small lies, and then bigger lies, and then bigger lies, and then slowly and then the truth doesn't even mean anything to you anymore. And the truth becomes something that's not even, I find it fascinating when I listen to people of great intelligence talk about the truth and argue the abstractness of it and how it's impossible to define and how it's like, no, it isn't. It's not at all. Not at all. Everyone knows what the right thing to do is. Everybody knows. But no one wants to admit it. Most people don't want to admit it, because admitting it there's some admission of guilt or even as Muslims, there's a lot of things I would like to say. I can't say. There's a lot of things that exist within our ummah, within our nation. I would like to say it, I can't. Because people aren't ready to hear the truth. Most people who tell the truth get crucified. Why do you think prophets are always killed? They just come out and say, here's the truth, and then people want to kill them. Wallahi. They come out, they say the truth, and then the first thing is like, they have to murder this guy. Yeah, we have to absolutely murder him. Why? لَلَّمْ تَنْتَهُوا لَنَرْجُمَنَّكُمْ. We're going to stone you to death. La ilaha illallah. What? Because the truth is painful, and it's direct. It's hard sometimes to swallow, because you don't want to be told you're wrong. You don't want to accept that you've been wrong. Ummah Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was built on this. Was built on just the pursuit of the truth. That we never turn our backs on it, ever. We have to go back to this. When you look at the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, after the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam passed away, they fought. The reason that they fought is because they had a respect for the truth. They respected only the truth. They did what they thought was haqq at the time. When you look back historically, there's a million reasons why they shouldn't have. But they did. And when you zoom out and understand, like Jamal al-Suffin and Harra and all this, it's just people who saw no value that came close to haqq. And when they saw what to them was haqq, they went for it. Even if that meant they were putting their lives on the line. Even if that meant they were going to fight, because they always did what they thought was the truth. They always did what they thought was correct at all times. It's hard. It's hard to do that. You're always going to want whatever's safer, quieter, less controversial, less problematic, right? Let's just level things out so we're not. The haqq, it doesn't. You can't do that. You can't. Haqq is haqq. The truth is the truth, and it has to be respected. It has to be stood by, regardless of the consequences, regardless of what happens next. Or else, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. This is the alternative. وَلِيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. This is the alternative for people who don't do that. Along with that, we'll continue inshallah next week. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على